I think it's part of our purpose for existing, Film Thread existing, that we let you know about movies you wouldn't know about if you didn't listen to this show, which instantly makes you smarter than most people. This is like when the wizard gave the scarecrow the diploma and he was instantly smart. By listening and or watching the show, you're instantly smarter than everybody else. Just for knowing that movies other than Thor, Love and Thunder, or Minions exist. But Alan, tell us about Phantom of the Open.
Yeah, well, this is one of those indie films with big stars in it. It stars Mark Rylance as Maurice Flitcroft. It's a true story of Maurice. It also has Sally Hawkins, who plays his wife. But the general idea is, for some reason, the Brits love to celebrate mediocre athletes. And just like Eddie the Eagle, we have Maurice Flitcroft here. He's a guy, a lower class guy who works on the docks. He's in fear of losing his job because of the economy tanking. So he decides that he's going to take up golf. He just one day sees golf on television and says, "Oh, I can do this." And through kind of not checking or checking a certain box on the British Open application, he is accepted as a participant, as a contestant in the British Open on television. And so as he's playing, having never played the game before, he goes up and just plays horribly. And this starts to get the attention of the organizers of the British Open. You wonder how this guy got in. And they're kind of stuck at this point, and they have to let him finish the first round, which of course he loses and doesn't return for the next day. But then Maurice is so inspired by wanting to play golf for the rest of his life. The rest of the movie is basically his attempts to get back into the British Open, to the point where he actually dons a disguise, changes his name, and enters in as a different person, as a person who was already registered in but couldn't show up, so he took his place. And so it has a very much of a Eddie the Eagle vibe. It definitely has. It's a more serious version of Happy Gilmore in that sense. It's true he's not very good at golf. They kind of hold to that throughout the film, but ultimately it's a movie about his family, about just his need to, he's a guy who's been always supporting his family, giving his wife children. He has twin sons who quite frankly were champion disco dancers. And he supported them that. So he spent his life just supporting his family, and going into golf was his family's way of paying it back to him and saying, we believe in you, pursue your dream of golf. And so it's a very sweet story about a guy who's just no good. A sweet story about a bad athlete.
Is it based on a true story?
Yes, it's absolutely a true story. In fact, the guy is so inspiring that near the end, you find out that the University of Michigan created an award for the worst player on the team, and named it after Maurice Flitcroft. And it was just kind of, I guess ultimately it's a story of finding meaning in one's life. And even though this guy couldn't play golf at all, he made an impact on the world. And I think that's essentially why they made the movie, I'm pretty sure.
First of all, I love that kind of story. I love the story of just like someone who fails at something but keeps going in spite of failure. I think that is if there's a lesson to be learned in just how to cope in life, is failure is part of life. Allowing yourself, just as someone who was I think in some respects I could have been considered a tough dad, right? And it's just part of what you have to do is you have to let your kids fail at something in order for them to level up. I mean, that's the lesson of every video game you've ever played. The lesson is you continue to fail until you learn how to not fail. And I love that kind of story. I find them almost more inspiring than stories where characters win. For example, whenever you ask anyone, hey, who won the fight in the first Rocky movie? Well, everybody says, well, Rocky. No, that's not what happened. In the first Rocky movie, Rocky loses, but he earns the thing that is more important than winning the fight in the first Rocky movie against Apollo Creed. He earns respect. And he was someone who was a loser, this sort of like low-level thug who boxed and didn't take it super seriously, and then earned respect from the community, from the world of sports. And it didn't matter that he lost the fight. And then basically Rocky 2 is a remake of Rocky 1 where Rocky wins. Sorry for the spoiler. But I love lessons like that, in particular, true lessons. I'd love to see a documentary about this person, just because when I see movies like this and I see like, oh, this is the biopic, in some ways I'd almost rather rather watch the documentary about this person's life rather than the movie. But how is Mark Rylance? Because I love Mark Rylance. What I love about Mark Rylance, he's the kind of actor that you're like, you say to yourself, is that Mark Rylance? Because he's so like, I mean, his eyebrows look different in this than other roles he's played.
And he's got the teeth going on too. Yeah, no, I mean, you know, like I said, I do improv, and I always start a scene in character, and it always evolves into me. You know, Mark Rylance definitely creates a character with Maurice here, and so yeah, he's great. And he, you know, what actors do is they understand their character, they build the character, and they keep that character consistent, especially as that character arc goes on. And you know, Sally Hawkins plays his wife. She plays a very dutiful wife. And she has her moments too. You know, great actors playing regular roles, and they always hit it out of the park. And to your point, I always say adversity builds character. You know, you cannot go through life having everything go your way. You know, things bad have to happen in your life in order for you to grow as a human being. And I think that's a message I swear we've lost on the world today, especially in raising kids.
It 100% is a message that's been lost, that adversity and overcoming adversity, every successful person that you know or that you're aware of failed a lot. Walt Disney, for example, filed for bankruptcy 7 times. You can look this up. He filed for bankruptcy 7 times before Disneyland even opened. Okay. That's a guy that, like, you know, whatever you think of Walt Disney, failed a lot. And when he made Snow White, they thought he was crazy. They thought that Walt Disney was crazy. No one wants to see a movie, a cartoon more than 5 minutes. Yeah. You're nuts. They called it Disney's Folly, is what they called Snow White. And now here we are enjoying feature-length animated movies.
Interesting story about Snow White. He was $1 million away from completing the film. He didn't have the money. And so what he did, and this is kind of weird, but he took the film to the bank, showed the banker the film, and after seeing the film, the banker said, "All right, you have a great film here. Here's the money." I mean, that's kind of how lucky the guy was. And if you look at Walt Disney's life, every single project he worked on, if it failed, it was going to sink the company. And so he was motivated by success, which is a far cry from where Disney is right now.
Well, Disney is motivated by fear, and I think too easily manipulated by the mob and what a small percentage of their customers think. So they're catering to a smaller group rather than. I tweeted yesterday on my personal Twitter account at that Chris Gore. All I said was the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, which is a quote from a book, but also a quote from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Yeah. And so, I mean, isn't that one of Spock's dying words? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Yeah. And he says that
was his motivation to save, to jettison the Genesis project.
And, we've lost that.